The Impaler is a real piece of beauty. Stare into the chrome reflections of the car's sharp grille long enough, and you'll see a world that used to be free from the mandated tyranny of seatbelts. Get a whiff of that cigarette-baked interior that'll transport you back to a time when kids could only drink from hoses and the school was an uphill walk both ways. The static crunch of the radio reverberates echoes of an America from long ago, one which wasn't afraid to fight valiantly against freedom-hating rice farmers and the communist ideals of peaceniks, hippies, and civil activists. The Impaler sits in a sweet spot, right between the opulence of jet-inspired fins and the ostentatiousness of excess luxury. Sharp edges and exaggerated proportions of the car's body attempts to blend fun and formality like casual Friday at a legal firm. Every modern car has to look angry in order to pique customer interest. In the mid to late 60s, things weren't all that different. Cars needed to look tough. The average sedan had to communicate to the customer that it wasn't afraid of burning rubber, but it also wasn't against burying its steering column into the driver's chest either. Like many models under Declasse's belt, the Impaler started out as a trim package for the Tornado. The designers were well aware by this point that any hunk of chrome you added to a product made it more desirable. 4 generations later, and here we are. The Impaler also tells us a lot about the era it was built for. Aggressively penetrative marquees and overpowering performance packages attempted to suppress fears of masculine and automotive muscle gaps. The crude ride quality and the sharp edges were rugged enough to conceal the flamboyant curvature of its sculpted profile. Much like the people in power, the Impaler tries to have it both ways. The same leaders calling for war would never send their sons, nor would they abandon the same luxuries they claimed were softening the younger generations, galvanizing the cyclical mindset that each generation is too pampered for not having endured the hardships of those before them. Speaking of luxuries, here are the headlights. And they're gone. But here they are again. Oh, and they're gone again. The spectacle of hideaway headlights was all thanks to the power of vacuum tubes, a system that would eventually make night driving a game of accident roulette should they decide to fail. On the topic of headlights, if we move to the back of the car, we can see the competitors for the world's smallest set of taillights. The interior doesn't have much to show for, as is to be expected. You've got a glove box and an AC vent. Enjoy. Disregarding the higher trim levels, the Impaler already came standard issue with the larger than necessary big block. This made your luxury car more than willing to show up the neighbors and teach your kids a lesson in whiplash, all in a swift pedal stomp. Strangely, the Impaler is one of the first cars to not feature an air filter on the top of its engine, a design choice that Declasse decided to abandon for its later models. Even by the late 60s, the Impaler's 0 to 60 wasn't exactly a benchmark time, but it could still finish the quarter mile in less time than it took for the IAA to launch a coup in South America. Speaking of the quarter mile, the Impaler also made a name for itself in the drag racing scene. All you needed back then was a bigger engine, tires, and a set of tin snips. As far as performance goes, it's exactly what you'd expect. Not terrible, but not ideal either. Just one look at this thing and you already know that taking a corner too fast is a death sentence. This thing's also a bouncy castle if you hit a pothole. The Impaler was a brief snapshot into a changing America, and that nitrate film was decomposing. Fear of nuclear war became apathetic indifference as teachers no longer taught students that their desk was safe enough to withstand the bombs. The brutality of war was now colorized and televised for the masses, proving the modern man was just as capable of slaughter as his fathers before him. Nearly 60 years later, the Impaler continues to remain prevalent in our culture, whether that's in local cars and coffee, failing television shows, or speeding away from turf shootouts. The Declasse Impaler. A car as deadly as it is gorgeous.